Just a few days before Russia's brutal invasion of Ukraine marked its one-year anniversary, President Joe Biden spoke to the world on Tuesday from Warsaw, Poland. In remarks made at night in front of the Polish presidential palace and a large crowd, Biden stated, "1 year ago, the world was bracing for the fall of Kiev. Well, I've just returned from a trip to Kiev, and I can say that Kiev is still standing. Kiev is ebullient. It is substantial. Most significantly, it stands free." President Putin believed that when he ordered his tanks to advance into Ukraine, we would submit. He was in error. Ukrainians are far too courageous. We were too united as America, Europe, and the other countries in the Atlantic to Pacific Alliance. When criticizing the Russian president specifically, Biden said, democracy was too strong. He went on to say, President Putin is faced with something today that he didn't think was possible a year ago. In times of great upheaval and uncertainty, knowing what you stand for is most important, and knowing his stance with you makes all the difference. As a result, democracies around the world have become stronger, not weaker, while autocrats have become weaker, not stronger. The autocrats' appetites cannot be satiated, they must be resisted. Autocrats only know how to say no. Said Biden. Non. You won't invade my nation. You won't take my freedom, I assure you. You won't take my future, not at all. Putin still doubts our conviction, according to Biden, even though he no longer doubts the strength of our coalition. He questions our tenacity. He questions whether we will still support Ukraine. He questions whether NATO can continue to be united. However, there should be no mistaking that we will continue to support Ukraine, said he. We won't get tired, and NATO won't split, added he. Putin's lust for territory and power is self-destructive. And the Ukrainian people will triumph because they love their nation. The world's democracies will protect freedom today, tomorrow, and forever. Because freedom is what's at stake in this situation. Biden concluded his speech after about 20 minutes by stating that the world was at an inflection point, and that the choices we make over the course of the next 5 or so years will determine and shape our lives for decades to come. The principles and the stakes are timeless, even though the decisions we make today are ours to make. The choice between disorder and order, creation and destruction, fear and hope, democracy lifting up the human spirit or the brutal dictator's hand crushing it, said he. Expect vintage Joe Biden in the speech, according to the president's national security advisor Jake Sullivan. Hours prior to Biden's speech, Russian President Vladimir Putin addressed the Russian parliament and declared his nation would no longer be a party to the New START nuclear arms treaty, the last significant arms control pact between the US and Russia. Putin claimed that for the time being, Russia is suspending the treaty, rather than withdrawing from it, because the war in Ukraine makes it impossible to allow American inspectors to visit Russian nuclear sites, as stipulated by the treaty. In response to the announcement in Greece, Secretary of State Antony Blinken told journalists that the choice was really unfortunate and very irresponsible, but we'll be watching closely. Hours prior to Biden's speech, Russian President Vladimir Putin addressed the Russian parliament and declared his nation would no longer be a party to the New START nuclear arms treaty, the last significant arms control pact between the US and Russia. Putin claimed that for the time being, Russia is suspending the treaty, rather than withdrawing from it, because the war in Ukraine makes it impossible to allow American inspectors to visit Russian nuclear sites, as stipulated by the treaty. In response to the announcement in Greece, Secretary of State Antony Blinken told journalists that the choice was really unfortunate and very irresponsible, but we'll be watching closely. Sullivan had emphasized earlier that Biden's speech shouldn't be interpreted as a response to Putin, despite the fact that Biden repeatedly attacked Putin by name. However, Putin did not specifically mention Biden in his remarks. According to Sullivan, the time and date were chosen to coincide with the war's one-year anniversary. Biden even moved up his usual State of the Union timeframe for the trip. This is not a rhetorical competition with anyone else. We didn't set up the speech as some sort of head-to-head, he said. This is a vision for the world that we are both working to create and defend, an affirmative statement of values. Biden had a meeting with Polish President Andrzej Duda on Tuesday in Warsaw to discuss how Washington and Warsaw could work together to support Kiev, particularly given Poland's crucial role as a hub for military and financial aid to Ukraine. Duda expressed her gratitude to Biden for visiting Ukraine. As the first American president to enter a war zone without an active American military presence, Biden paid a surprise visit to Kiev on Monday, where he witnessed some of the destruction brought on by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, was informed there by Biden that the United States would support Ukraine for as long as it takes. According to reporters traveling with him, Biden first arrived in Poland late Sunday. Then, he left for Ukraine to meet with Zelensky for about 5 hours. Kiev and Ukraine are still standing 1 year later. Democracy is up. On Monday, Biden spoke alongside the president of Ukraine. The world stands with you, and so do the Americans. This Friday marks a year since Russia invaded Ukraine.